let's start with NewsNation political contributor Mick Mulvaney. Mick, great to see you again. Of course, Mick served as Trump's acting chief of staff. He's also a former director of the Office of Management and Budget. Thanks for being here. First, are you surprised by this?
No, not really. I'm a little bit surprised by the outrage against the decision. If you go look at the decision, what it says is that for official acts, there's immunity. For non-official acts, there's not any immunity. And for some things in the middle, we have to wait and see. I sort of thought that was going to be the result from the very beginning. I honestly thought that the language from Justice Sotomayor in the dissent is, with all respect, a little bit irresponsible. I don't think anybody is actually taking the position that murdering your political opponents is an official act. I don't know what the Trump lawyer was thinking of during the oral arguments, but I'm not sure anybody really thinks seriously that the Supreme Court would pass a law, or at least render a decision, that would make murder okay if done by the President of the United States. That's not the country we live in, and I'm a little surprised by the ferocity of the pushback on this decision today.
With that said, it is an unprecedented time in our history, but we all know Nixon's infamous quote: when a president does it, that means it's not illegal. What's changed since that statement, since 1977?
You know, when Bill Clinton says, you know, it all depends on what your definition of the word is those are politicians speaking. They are not the Supreme Court. A politician can think whatever he or she wants to think about what the law is. The Supreme Court actually interprets the law for us. So, look, I get it. I understand that the biggest issue here is now, I think, at least in terms of the politics of the matter, is that the case is not going to go forward before the election. That's the most likely outcome here. And there's a lot of folks who are really upset by that, and I get that. But I don't understand, is Justice Sotomayor going to say the same thing? If Trump wins and somehow they come up with an idea to charge Biden with murder for what happened in Afghanistan, do you think Justice Sotomayor is going to say that that's okay? I get that we're in a hyper-politicized era. I understand that. But if you read the decision, it reads as a very reasonable decision. In fact, the quote that you just read from the White House, some of that language is actually in the opinion, that no one is above the law. And that's not from Justice Sotomayor's dissent. That's from the actual opinion itself. So I get it. I understand everybody's very sensitive and hyper-politicized right now. But at the end of the day, this is probably the right decision.
Again, former President Trump saying it was written brilliantly. AOC, by the way, we should mention this. She's threatening to file articles of impeachment against Supreme Court justices. Just a fun fact for our viewers. No Supreme Court justice has been impeached since 1804. Just want to mention that. But what are your remarks, or what's your reaction when you hear comments like that?
I'm a big fan of taking a deep breath and just letting everybody calm down a little bit. I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think most Supreme Court decisions are the end of the world. Do I think there's a half of this country that is upset by many of the decisions of the Supreme Court right now? Yes, I do. And I get that and I understand that. But keep in mind, for 40 or 50 years here, there was a majority liberal, group of liberals on the court that rendered a bunch of decisions that conservatives did like. The pendulum in this country goes back and forth. There's no question about it. And right now, with the Supreme Court 6-3 conservative, you're going to have a lot of folks who are upset. But I encourage people to go and read the decision, not listen to AOC for your interpretation of what the law is, and see if it doesn't make some sense to you, which is if the president's doing something official, passing a law, that you can't get sued criminally for that. If you're doing something that's not official, you can get criminally sued for that. And maybe there's some gray area in the middle that the courts have to decide. Keep in mind, this case is now remanded to the trial court to see if January 6th is sort of those things that is entitled to immunity or is not entitled to immunity. The case is not over. It's just not going to take place before the election.
Mick Mulvaney, always appreciate our conversation, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.